discussion,
Yes,
the agenda
exactly.
tonight.
Other minutes.
Yes.
So, a few weeks back, I actually called Elana and asked her, actually for some advice about talking about the fire dance. And I didn't want to talk about the fire dance again at Plant People because I've already done it. And in the discussion, she said, well, we don't have a speaker for this month, they've cancelled. So, and in the middle of this discussion, all this information started to pour in between the two of us about how we can talk about the fundamentals of ceremony through the two different lineages. And so, with me talking about the fire dance and then Elana adding. So the fire dance, I'm going to talk very briefly about it, and if there's something you want to know, please come and speak to me after. There's a few people here that have been to fire dances and are stalwarts of the fire dance. I see at least 3, there might be more. And the fire dance is Native American based medicine. It is a very new dance, but it's a very old lineage. So the fire dance came through the visionary whose name is Robbie, Otter Woman Standing, and she has actually spoken a few times at Plant People. She attended many dances, and through these dances, when you dance, you sometimes are given a vision. And she started getting this vision about this dance that was different to the dances that she was partaking in. And it was a dance with fires inside the medicine space, inside the arbor. And the medicine space, for those of you who don't know, it's quite a big space. It's about 20 meters diameter inside the arbor. And she kept getting this vision for 3 years. And finally she brought it to the elders, and they said, no, you can't do it because you're not allowed to have fires in an arbor. And she was very confused because this vision is big. It's a big vision. You can't ignore a vision. And so in the end, she sat with Spirit and asked, like, why? Why am I getting this vision when it's not allowed? And they said, this comes from before the modern Native Americans. It comes from before. And it's been given to you because at this time, on planet Earth's evolution, we need that kind of fast transformation. And you transform and transmute really quickly through fire. So the fire dance has 5 fires inside the medicine space, and each one of those fires has a specific energy, which I will talk about afterwards if you're interested. But the beauty of a dance is this: so it's quite simple. You'll feel a call to be there. It's an undeniable call. It's not something that we will ever come to you and say, do you want to come? It's you will know, and you will get hold of us. The information will come across your desk or your tablet or whatever, and you'll know, I want to be there. And you will either feel the call to dance or you'll feel the call to crew. Either way, you're going to be part of the ceremony and you're going to go through quite a strong frequency shift. The dances, some people think it's the harder part, but it's actually the easier part. They think it's harder because from Friday afternoon, late afternoon until Sunday mid-morning, 40 plus hours, you won't be eating, drinking, talking, cell phoning, pens, books, none of that. You'll just have your bed, your sacred stuff, and your clothing inside the arbor, and you stay in the arbor for that time, in a covered area. So the outside of the arbor is covered. And people go, oh geez, I can't. There's no way. I can't not have water for 40 plus hours. You can. Millions of people have been doing this for tens of thousands of years. That's actually the easiest part of the dance. And if you come as a crew member, that's for me is a little harder because you're serving the dancers. You're there in a space of service. And a crew member can be any crew position. The chief will normally be shown where you're supposed to be, and you will serve in that role. And the crew is quite amazing because it's a group of people that don't know each other and might not even like each other sometimes. That happens because, hey, not everyone likes everyone. But during that weekend, during that ceremony, everyone works together. Everyone is working together and in a space of love and a space of cooperation and a space of service to spirits, service to themselves and service to the dancers. So that's basically how the fire dance works. It's a lot bigger than that. I could probably talk for 3 hours on the fire dance and still not run out of information. So if it's something that interests you, if you're interested in the medicine dance like this, please just come and talk to me afterwards, and if you have any questions, I'll explain further. Okay. So yeah, is there anything you want to add? Yeah.
All right. So what's really interesting about these medicines, the medicine of the fire dance and the medicine of plants, is that there's a calling, there's a summoning. And why I think it's really important to work with these different lineages is because I think that it's very valid that maybe plants are not for everyone. And you know, or maybe you're working with plants, but maybe you're also called to the fire dance. And it's important, you know, to recognize the calling and to feel into the calling. So how do you know if you are genuinely called to a specific medicine, to a specific ceremony? And, you know, working with plants, you know, recently we've been serving a lot of iboga into this community. And iboga has been really, really interesting because I've never seen a plant with such a powerful summoning capacity. And it comes to people in dreams, and people would just start messaging me and going, oh, you know, I want to come to an iboga ceremony. And I've never seen a plant move like this through the community with such force. And you know when you're called to a specific medicine, and you feel it, like suddenly, you know, it's in your space, you keep hearing about it, whereas maybe you've never heard about something like ayahuasca ever before, and now there's just synchronicities everywhere, and you feel it rising in you. The same way the fire dance, suddenly you've never heard about a fire dance ever before, and now suddenly you're hearing about it everywhere. So it's important to feel into that calling to a specific medicine. And you know, what's interesting about the fire dance is, you know, it's not just a calling to dance, but it's also a calling to serve. And that's what's really interesting about this specific ceremony, is that the medicine is in the service as well, not just in the dancing. And so those of you that are interested in the fire dance, you know, maybe you would rather engage with it in a capacity of service. And it's something that is really not spoken about, I feel, enough in this community, is the gift of service. Because in service, there are so many gifts. And when you participate in a ceremony in a capacity of service, the gifts are profound. And everyone in the space of the arbor is actually experiencing medicine. Likewise, you know, my path working with plants has been, most of it's been spent in the kitchen. And yet, you know, I'm on this shamanic path, and yet most of my gifts I've received, but I've spent most of my time chopping carrots. and yet, you know, I just wish people would realize this, that the gifts are in service. And when you step into service, you realize your gifts. And it's not what we can get from spirit, but what can we give to spirit. And that's where there is so much to actually be realized. You know, there's so much medicine in there. You know, what can we give to spirit? It's that selflessness. You know, every legitimate spiritual path has an element of service. And in the fire dance, you know, you can step into service. So, you know, we look at the fire dance. How many crew do you have?
Depends, and we need minimum 24, 25 to make it happen, you know.
So,
but
you know,
we've had up to 36, 37, you know, crew.
37 crew to support a maximum 20 dancers.
Yeah, 18, 17, 15 dancers, yeah.
So, you know, when you hear the fire dance, everyone thinks, oh no, I can't dance. But you don't understand, like you could work in the kitchen. You could work, you know, on as a drummer, or as, you know, one of the guardians of the
Looking
arbor.
after the arbor, or firekeeping, you know.
And yet you'll still experience the medicine.
Big time. And a perfect example of that is at the last dance, one of my kitchen angels, we call them angels because they are. Without the kitchen, there's no dance. We need them. She had to buzz out and go get something. And I said to the kitchen archangel, sense her, because she'll be able to hold space while she goes, because you're popping out of ceremony. And she said she stood in Woolworths and she felt like she was on acid. And she was like, okay. And that's what we don't realize, and a lot of people don't realize when you're at the dance. I've had a few people on the Saturday morning on the crew come to me and go, whoa, I can't believe we're here and we didn't take anything. And that's, there are many kinds of medicines that get you to the same place. Now we use plants in the dance, but we don't ingest them. We use them to offer to the fire. So each fire has its own plant. And the people in this room here are just a small smattering of the people that are right now being called to shift and to awaken and to drop the veils. We're all being called. And that's why these medicines are so important, is that we heed that call. And we say, we're going to be brave, we're going to be heroes, and we're going to do it because the planet needs it, we need it, our country needs it, the animals and the plants need it, the earth needs it. It needs us to step up, and that's why this is so important. And for me, I've always said that the fire dance it's like open soul surgery. There's no other way for me to explain it. It's open soul surgery. There's lots of ceremonies I attended and they're deep, but it opens you up. And afterwards your life will change. And it's not always fun, obviously, because change is not always fun. Because change is death. And then you die and you're reborn, and you die and you're reborn, and you die and you're reborn, over and over and over and over. That's the whole point of doing this work. So yeah. Moving on. We have to.
We'll stick to the agenda.
So I wanted to talk a lot about the fundamentals of ceremony. Just outside of the fire dance. And I think a lot of people that have been called to come to ceremony, they're looking for a magic bullet. They're looking for that thing that my life sucks, like everything's cuck at the moment, and I want things to change, like now. And it doesn't work like that. When you feel a call to go to any ceremony, that spirit, it's your spirit calling you, your ancestors, your guides, your angels, whatever it is that the path that you follow, because it's all the same in the end, it's just different words, It's you getting called, and when you're called, it's really up to you to step, and then once you step, the work begins. The work begins. It doesn't happen overnight. So, I know a few people, I've got a few friends that are doing a lot of ayahuasca, like every month, because they want to get that first illumination that they had the first time they had ayahuasca, and it doesn't always work like that. You've got to integrate, and that's really where the hard work of ceremony comes in, is that you attend a ceremony and then you've got to integrate, So, yeah, and I'm just checking my notes because there's a lot of things here.
If I can interject there, the calling to medicine, are you coming to a ceremony, or are you coming to medicine for the experience, or are you coming to medicine for the work? And we see this a lot in the plant community, where people are coming for the experience and they're expecting the medicine to do the work. And especially when we're working with these Amazonian plants, it is such sacred medicine. It is so rare. We are so privileged to work with these plants, and every time we work with them, we should be asking ourselves, at what cost does this medicine come? And is it really right for us to be working with this medicine? Is there maybe not another medicine that we could be working with? Because it's that opportunistic cost. When we work with medicine, we're basically depriving someone else of working with that medicine because it is so scarce. So what is the intention? Is that calling to work with medicine really sincere? And, are we maybe using the medicine as a crutch? Because what is the real ceremony here? The real ceremony is life. And are we maybe not, shouldn't we rather be dropping into the experience of life and integrating that medicine that we've received? I just feel like there's so much medicine being used, and we're not allowing ourselves to drop in to really integrate adequately. And the thing is, when we're working with these really, really, really powerful teacher plants, the nature of these teacher plants is they're dissolving energies. And what they're doing is they're dissolving your identity. And if you are not integrating into an authentic spiritual paradigm, eventually you're going to get to the point where you step back and you just don't know who you are anymore. Like, what has happened to you? So, if you're not following a spiritual path, and there's absolutely no judgment in terms of which path you choose, but if you're not integrating and if you don't find a spiritual practice, then you're going to lose yourself. So it's about slowing down and really, really questioning, how often are we working with that medicine and why? But when you do feel the calling, really dropping in and just questioning, is it the experience or is it the work that you're going to that medicine for? And that's also why it's really powerful to also look at different medicine modalities and the reverence for these different lineages, because it's nice to expose yourself to other lineages as well.
Yeah. As far as the fire dance is concerned, I mean, these dances are tens of thousands of years old. They're older than the pyramids. They've been going on for so long. I know that when I step into the Ava as chief, I have every chief behind me, supporting me. I know that. The thing is like, why are we called to ceremony? Like, what is the point? What is the point of it all? And I think it's for me and through the fire dance, it's about this unpacking that we need to do as people, because we live in a world now where we're starting to realize that a lot of what we were told as children at school, in church, or wherever we were, a lot of it is a lie. A lot we know that, and especially for boys, a lot of our emotions were taken away from us, and girls as well, but especially boys, because I know from the age of 3, boys are told, stop feeling. And so what that does is it creates this buildup of stuff that we don't feel. And then we become depressed, angry, anxious, fearful adults that are doing things in a reactive way instead of in a calm and powerful present way. And so that's why we are all being called to ceremony, because when you're in ceremony, you unpack. You're unpacking something. Whatever's boiling to the surface, the next thing, and you're letting it out. And that's what the dance is about. When you come to a dance and you dance, you're unpacking. And you're safe to unpack there. You have a crew around you that are holding you and letting you do it. They're not going to do it for you, but they're going to hold you in the space of love. And that's what all of these ceremonies are about at the end of the day, is about unpacking parts of ourselves that don't belong to us anymore and that are stopping us from our divinity, from our magnificence and from our magic, because we are magical. We just don't believe it anymore. We weren't told it. We were told that we're limited from the minute we got to school. We're not limited. We are limitless. And I want to be so much more limitless than I am. That's what's important to me. I want to be so much more. And we're all healers, but we're not healers. We're all facilitating healing. That's what it's about. It's like we're bringing every single person to their own ability to heal. And that's what ceremony is about for me. And that's what the fire dance is about. So I know I digressed there quite a bit, I'm sorry. But it felt important. So, just talking about ceremony itself, like, there are a lot of people that throw the word around. I get it a lot. I had a guy message me a few weeks ago, we want you to come do a drum ceremony at our event. And I'm like, whoa, okay, this must be something special. And I'm like, what event? And he said, it was some trance party. And I'm like, drum ceremony at a trance party? You can't just throw that word around. This is not conducive to a drum ceremony, this space. So there are a lot of people using the word ceremony, and I think ceremony is a sacred thing, and it comes in many forms. Like for me, the fire dance is a big form of it's what they call high ceremony in Native American. In the red path, it's high ceremony. So it's the biggest ceremony you can do. But outside of that, there are many ceremonies, and I think for me, what I feel people need to really focus on when they're doing ceremony is being grounded. Being grounded, This is not some fairy tale. that we're doing. When we're working with people, we have to have our feet on the ground. We have to be feeling and making sure that these people are safe. You know, so being grounded, being present, holding that space in a beautiful way, and in a strong way, but still keeping your intention innocent. You know, sticking to the form of whatever that ceremony is, because every ceremony's got its forms, but keeping it humble, innocent, and inspirational. Because if you get too formed, then it's dogma again. So keeping it flexible but grounded. You know, these are the things that and you've got to be so present when you're doing that. Because sometimes you go, oh no, well actually this is the form. But then you're getting another message from Spirit saying, you know, the form can change. And that's what I love about the fire dance compared to other medicine dances that I've experienced, which are not a lot. So, but there's a lot of really strict form in other medicine dances, where in the fire dance, every chief is allowed to do their own thing as long as they hold to the vision that Robbie gave us. So there's this flexibility, which is beautiful, because then in the middle of the dance you can just change it up. I mean, last year, this is a perfect example. I love this. Robbie was doing the fire dance in Iceland, first time in Iceland, and on Saturday the wind pulled in, and in Iceland the wind blows. Tents were going flat to the ground, and they were dancing in this wind. And after a while, Robbie's like, "What are we going to do? This is we really, everyone's suffering here." So in the middle of the ceremony, she said, "Stop, everybody! Tell the wind, scream at the wind, tell the wind everything you need to tell them." And everyone was like, "Ah!" And then it was, "Turn to the ocean, tell the ocean everything." "Ah!" And then, "Here's the mountain, turn to the mountain, tell the mountain." And they screamed, and then the wind stopped. So it was, she got that inspiration, changed the form of the ceremony instantly, and it was changed. So.
Yeah. There's, in terms of the ceremony and the preparation of the ceremony, in terms of listening to Spirit, both from the participant perspective and the facilitator perspective. So, from a facilitator perspective, there's a lot of holding space and dropping into what is the intention of that ceremony. And from the plant medicine perspective, that may involve, consulting an astrological calendar, looking at lunar cycles, getting a sense. But the strongest resource you've got is just listening to Spirit. And as a shamanic practitioner, you as a practitioner will tap in and you will have a sense of what kind of ceremony it's going to be. And this is why, as practitioners who hold in space, that self-work and the preparation for ceremony is so important, because you need to feel into what kind of ceremony it's going to be and prepare yourself and prepare for that ceremony. And this is something that is a commonality with plant medicine and with something that Vaughan and I have discussed, that Vaughan experiences as a chief. We feel beforehand what kind of dance or what kind of ceremony is coming, and you feel into that and you start preparing. And the way that you prepare is you start praying and you start preparing yourself and you start cleaning out yourself. So self-work is like a really, really important part of holding space for ceremony. Prayers, preparing the land and healing the land. So starting to ask permissions from the land that you're going to be working on. And it's something that I've really had to start to learn now, because there's certain signs that land needs to be healed. For example, if you're working with a particular piece of land, especially land that's been used for a lot of ceremony, you can see signs that land is not clean and is trying to push you out, such as thorns. If land's been used for a lot of ceremony, you'll see things like moonflower growing, and moonflower is the plant of nightmares. So there's a lot of knowledge, especially that the Sangomas have, that they can share with us. And also this knowledge is something that Spirit will share with you if you can just go and sit with the land and listen to the land. So when land is healthy and when land is happy, you'll see things like butterflies and you'll see specific plants growing. But when the land is not happy, it starts to push you out. And then you need to go and you need to heal the land, and you need to pray to the land and the ancestors of the land and the spirits of the land, and the land needs to be healed. Because once again, we're taking all the time. And what are we giving back? And that land is taking a toll for the work that we are doing on it. So it's about asking permissions. It's really sacred work we're doing, working with plants, any of this ceremony healing work, but we don't think about what about the damage to the land and the strain that the land's taking, and going and making offerings to the land. And before we do a ceremony, going and blessing the land and healing the land and singing to the land and drumming to the land. And asking permissions from the land that we can actually hold space there. So these are things to consider, and part of the training in terms of facilitation is to start working with the land and bring in the allies of the land to hold space with you, because that's part of your protection as a facilitator, if you're going to be holding space.
Yeah, I mean, that's very much part of the fire dance as well. I think that was the thing that surprised me most, so... I never expected to be called to chief a dance. I mean, it wasn't an aspiration of mine. I loved just being on the drum team. I was happy doing that. I often ask myself, why am I at this dance? Because it's bloody painful. Sometimes you're just like thinking, why do I keep coming back? But you know why? Because at the end of the ceremony, you see what happens. So, like what it means to be called as a fire dance chief is that I didn't realize it at the time, and now 2 years later I can look and go, okay, now I understand what it is. You are called to initiate into a lineage, and you initiate into the lineage of chiefs. And the whole idea of a chief, it's not some hierarchical elevated position like you'd think, the tribal chief. It's actually the custodian of the energy of that medicine, of that dance for that space, for South Africa, and right now for Gauteng, So a chief from another country would not come here unless I was sick, basically. And when I was called, it was a shock. It was a complete shock, and I got terribly sick. I mean, those people that know me, I was almost left the planet. It was a close thing. And but I had to do it because I didn't, I'd probably been ignoring the call of spirit for like 20-something years. I didn't want to do medicine work. I wanted to be a musician. Medicine work was too difficult. I had to put myself in the world, and that kind of sucks sometimes. And yeah, so it was tough initially, but it's getting easier as time goes along. So, like, what the role entails, and I only found this out after I'd said yes. So, like, I've said to people, if they'd asked me now, I might say no. If I knew then what I know now, I might have said no. But what the role of chief entails is that as soon as you decide a dance, the next dance is coming up on this date, as soon as you publicize that, you're already holding space for that dance. So that's months before. And it's as soon as that first dancer says, I'm coming to dance, you're holding space for that dancer. So those dancers become your dancers right up until the dance and through the dance. And people think, well, how's this possible? How do you do that? And it's not easy. I'll tell you right now. I mean, the weeks just before the dance, I start to get the weirdest emotions. Like, I'll wake up depressed, and I'm like, why am I depressed? Nothing's going on. There's a dancer. One of my dancers are depressed. I don't know which one. So all I can do is transmute it inside of myself and send them love, whoever it is, So that's one of the roles of the chief, is to hold that space all the way through. The next role is to listen to spirit as to which roles the crew members are to be given. And a lot of people think that I decide which person is going to go where, and it isn't me. It's shown to me. I can see the picture of the person. And obviously, on the day before, if someone calls and says, I want to come to the fire dance, it's a no-brainer. There's like one place left, they're going to go there. But, you know, for the other roles, the roles where the more experienced people, more dance experienced people go to, it's shown to me very, very clearly. And then, you know, and often when I call the person and say, oh, you've been called to do this, they're like, oh my God, and they get all nervous and they freak out. But but Spirit is always correct. There have been times when a person's like, on my case, Chief, where am I? Where am I going to be on the crew? And I'm like, I don't know. And they get so frustrated with me, and then 2 days before the dance, they're like, I'm dancing. And I'm like, that's why I didn't see you. You know, you weren't on the crew, you're a dancer. So, you know, so that's the kind of stuff that happens. So that's what it means to be a fire dance chief. And it's actually, now I understand that it's a lineage, you know, and it's an amazing, it's the weirdest thing, because last year the new chief was called Brett, and he's been a chief in other dances, but not the fire dance. And he got so excited, he publicized his dance in December on Facebook. And we was like, chiefs were all resting, it's December. And we were all like, what's going on? Brett had switched on his dance, and it switched on for all of us. The channel gets switched on. We're like, dude, you've got to give us a chance to rest. You know, like, just calm down. The dance is like 6 months away, just chill. You know, but that's how it works. So we're all very connected, and we actually talk a lot. If there's anything that needs to be discussed, we discuss it quite a lot. But there's such a connection between all of us, and we can feel everyone else's dances coming up and how it's gonna flow. I never, you know, when Robbie told me all these things back in the day, I was like, whatever. You know, all you guys, all you medicine people are such moon units. That's my favorite word. And then the next thing I realized, I had like business cards from the Moon Unit Academy. I'm like, so that's the thing. It's you get connected to this, and it completely changes your life. It completely changes your life, and you walk with that lineage. You know, so the months preceding the dance, I do a lot of holding of space and obviously the logistics. This dance that's coming up, we don't need to do that many logistics because we did it before the last dance, so we just got some small things to do. And then the weeks before, it starts to ramp, the energy's ramp. I can feel the energy's ramping up right now. You know, I can feel it. I get this like vibration in my body. And then the last couple days before, it's crazy. Because that's when everyone realized, oh, the dance is happening, we better get hold of the chief. You know, so, and then it gets a bit stressful for me. But when it comes to preparing the space, that's where I was trying to get to. It's preparing the space for the dance. Is that, you know, in the next few days, week, I will go to the arbor. I might go with someone, I might go alone, and just go and sit with the arbor, go and check. Just go and see how the arbor is feeling. You know, and you normally can have a look and you can see energetically what's going on, what's on, and sometimes just physically the arbor needs repair, which is energetically at the end of the day, you know. And just go sit with the arbor, check it, but then the day before the dance starts, we arrive early in the morning and we set the arbor up. And that's the day that once that arbor is ready, and I will go and sit in the arbor on my own and just connect with the land and ask permission to. I normally sit, there's a tree in the middle of our arbor, and the tree and the arbor are one. And I sit and I talk to the tree and I talk to the land, and generally a couple birds come and sit with me and just wait until I get a yes. Sometimes it'll be immediate, and sometimes I'll have to wait quite a while. I do a lot of clearing on the land in the arbor. So that's the first thing that the chief has to do, is just respect the land. You know, we in humanity uses land a lot. We use land. We don't consider land as life. We don't consider land as our mother. You know, and that's what I love about the red path, is that the earth is our mother, and you have to constantly check with her. You know, as the dance is about to start, so on Friday, when all the people are arriving and the energy is really getting up and the dancers are all together making their prayer towels, they're doing their prayers and putting tobacco inside of the fabric, and they're praying, putting their prayers together for their dance, then myself and maybe a few wisdom keepers or fire mother or the alpha guardian will go to the arbor and we will open the shrines. And that is the most important part of the dance. You have to open the shrines in the most beautiful, powerful and innocent way. And what that means is you're opening the directions. So outside the arbor we have these rock shrines, and you go to each one. We take ash from all the fire dances ever. Every chief has ash from every single fire dance ever. Okay, we take that ash, we mix it with spit, corn and tobacco, and a bit of water because the spit's a bit. It's a bit stiff, man. And then we go and we pray and we open each direction. We go on the outside for the directions, and we go to the tree for as above, so below, and within. And once that is open, the arbor is no longer a flat plane, it is a ball. It is a microcosm of earth. And that arbor floor becomes the drum that the dancers will dance on. That's the drum skin. Mm-hmm. And when you open those shrines, you can feel, I mean, the world changes color. It's completely different. And that container, as we call it, is what's there to keep the crew and especially the dancers safe. That is the most important thing. So that during the ceremony, we are keeping everyone safe. Because when you do such big work, it does pull darkness. It's natural. It's just natural, But those containers are so powerful. And I mean, for me, that's when I'm always checking with my wisdom keepers, my fire mothers, and the alpha guardian. I'm always checking with them. How's the arbor feeling? Calm the arbor, smudge the arbor, tobacco in the fires, whatever we need. We always know what to do, to keep those dancers safe, because they are doing the most heroic thing they're ever going to do in their life. They are stepping into themselves to release stuff that doesn't belong to them anymore. They are like the ultimate adventurers, and we need to keep them safe while they are vulnerable. So that's why building that container is so important, and that's why one of the reasons we're having this talk tonight is about that. Build your container.
Absolutely.
Those people that you're working with have to be safe.
Yeah.
They have to be protected. And when I say this, I get emotional because it's that important. These people, when they're in your ceremony, they're your children. You have to, they're your babies. You have to look after them because they are babies. They're vulnerable.
This is really a very strong message in terms of, like as Vaughan was saying, while reading this talk. So the similarities between these two lineages. So the fire dance chief can very much be related to a shamanic practitioner, because what Vaughan's gone through when he was initiated as a fire dance chief was an initiation, and Vaughan nearly died, which is pretty typical of an initiation, to be honest. And in the plant medicine path, the way a shaman's initiated, there's a number of ways, and one of the most common ways is that you can get struck by lightning. We haven't seen too many of those here. But a shamanic calling, which is the same as the Sangoma path, and the Sangomas in this room can probably relate. So you can get an illness that is inexplicable, and you can nearly die from that too until you step into your path. Or it can be like a genetic, you're born into the family. And then you go through a process and you get initiated. And so elements of the shamanic initiation is going through this shamanic crisis until you step into initiation. And so that's the first aspect. And then the next aspect is aligning with a teacher and with a lineage. And the training and the teacher is so crucial, because when you initiated, you receive the lineage, and with the lineage comes not only the teacher and the teachings, but the lineage, and the lineage brings in the allies. And this is similar with the fire dance. So Vaughan is working with the lineage of the fire dance chiefs that have come before him, and with in plant medicine shamanism, the plant medicine shamans are also working with the spirit allies and working with the plants and the dietas that they do as well, and the teachings that they get. They learn how to protect and hold the space, because it is all about safety of the space. Because when you're working with spirit and when you're working with so much light, you need to know what it is you're working with. Because spirit and spirits are shapeshifters. So how do we know what it is we're working with unless we've had training? And how do we hold space, and how do we really know what we're doing unless we've had training? And it is about safety. So the similarities in the two lineages are very similar. And what I really appreciate about Vaughan is, we've been speaking for so long, and it's so beautiful how all these medicine communities are coming together because we are one. We actually are working with the same stuff. We're speaking the same language. And although we're working with different medicines, the similarities, it's the same thing. So it's different medicines, but there's no difference really, because we're working with spirit, and it's so beautiful. And this is why it's such a beautiful collaboration, these communities coming together like this. What Vaughan was talking about in terms of clearing and holding the space, the same thing happens in a plant medicine ceremony. You open the space, you invoke the allies, you hold the space, and the space is as strong as the shaman, as the allies you call in, and you want to work with someone who is really connected, and how deeply does that person hold the energy of the divine? How deeply does that person know the divine? Because what medicine is being served, because there's good medicine and there's bad medicine. So you want to know who you're working with. Are they walking the talk? How are they influencing the medicine? Because don't for one moment think that it's not possible for someone to influence the medicine. Now, medicine is very, very powerful, and there's incredible grace, and you are really blessed and generally protected, but you also just want to be careful in terms of who you're working with when you're working with plants. So, that's really why we do the work that we do in Plant People, is to bring in people who, we trust, and we trust to hold space with integrity. And, we really love the work that Vaughan does as well in his community, even though he's working with a different medicine, because we see the integrity of the fire dance.
Thanks, friend. Yeah, so during the fire dance, it's there are many, many, many ceremonies. After we open those shrines, there are many ceremonies that happen, and each one leads to there's actually a road. And when you're on the crew, like when I was on the crew, the chief would tell us what to do and we do it. But when you inside the vision and you see that road, it is so beautiful to see the road you're taking these dances on. So, that's big and intense. And the most important thing as a chief, you have to be grounded, you have to be humble, you have to listen all the time. Don't dismiss any thought that comes in. And you need to hold space and love. The biggest weapon we have is love. That is the biggest thing, love. And that's what, I don't know how other chiefs work, but for me, I work at instilling the essence of love in the dance, is that we all working in the space of love, unconditional love, for strangers a lot of the time. So the dance goes through all of these processes until Sunday afternoon, and the dancers come out of the arbor and they get to eat for the first time, and they get water, and it's beautiful, and everyone's happy, and we all come back together, and then there's a sharing, and then everyone heads off. But during that time, the firekeepers will go and close their fire, because they would have opened their fire. So this is how you close the ceremony. The firekeepers will close their fires. The chief will take a few of his khabas, his buddies, and go and close all the shrines. Because if you don't, I've heard of chiefs that forgot, and they go home, and they're lying in bed and they can't sleep. and everything's going, and they get in the car at midnight and drive back and go close the shrines because they're not going to sleep until those shrines are closed because the ceremony is still open, you know. So you close, you thank the Arbor, spend time with the Arbor, and I didn't know these things happened. But I think the second time I chiefed, there was a guy, and I was closing the Arbor, everyone was packing up and going home, and he was standing at his car, packing his stuff in, and I didn't realize, but he was watching me. And I was closed the shrines, and I was sitting with the tree and thanking the land and thanking the tree, because the tree transmutes all of our prayers, so that tree's working for us. And he came to me afterwards and he went, I didn't realize. And I said, what? He said, I didn't realize the stuff that you guys do. I didn't realize how authentic this is, you know, because that's what it is. It's the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that counts. That's what the job entails, is that you do it correctly. You do it from the right intention, you know. And I think in South Africa we really need to be pushing this to all these ceremonies that, come people, let's do it the right way, so we're not putting people in harm's way, you know. So yeah, so that's how it comes to an end.
Yeah, closing the space is really, really important, because if you don't, in any ceremony, you know, you leave a part of yourself there.
Yeah.
So it's the same with plant medicine. It's a container. That container needs to be closed to assist your integration. You know, we've spoken a lot so far about holding space and that, but I'd just like to talk a little bit about, you know, what it is to go through the experience of ceremony, because, you know, whether you're dancing in a fire dance or serving, or whether you actually in the space of a plant medicine ceremony, the one common denominator is surrender. And surrender is something that comes up both before the ceremony and during the ceremony. And it comes up before the ceremony, once you've identified the calling to medicine, but it also, how it comes up before the ceremony is resistance. And this is just something that I wanted to talk about before I forget. Because I've seen this, I've been to 2 fire dances with Vaughan myself, and even in myself, it came up with me, because I was, oh no, I think I've got tick bite fever, and we're going to have to come to fire dance, Vaughan. And with many plant medicine ceremonies, it's come up for me, where, you know, suddenly I'm really tired, I'm really sick, or you start to, maybe you end up having this huge, epic, cataclysmic fight with your partner. You know, oh no, I can't go to the ceremony. We're having World War III, you know. I haven't slept all night, we've just been fighting. I can't go to the ceremony. No way. So what happens is, you know, you start to create all these dramas. And what it is, it's the ego, and it's just everything that possibly can will get in the way to stop you from going to that ceremony. And a lot of it's you, but also I think there's also some things that don't want you to go there. And I can tell you now that the more opposition there is to you going to the ceremony, the more you need to go, because you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be a amazing ceremony. But get your ass to that ceremony, because the more opposition that is coming up for you, even if you have to drag yourself, get wheeled in on a stretcher, get yourself to that ceremony, because the more opposition. I mean, I've gone to a full flood Iboga. Like, I literally had to kind of get carried in there, like, oh, my back's bad, get there, take the Iboga. Iboga's a painkiller. It's amazing. You know, it's incredible. The more opposition that you have, the better it is, trust me. So, and it's about surrendering, really. It's always surrender, and it's not the same as initiations, which we were discussing. It's been coming up a lot in the last few talks. It's not the initiation that's painful, it's the resistance. And the more we fight it, the more we hurt ourselves. Just surrender. When you surrender, it's always bliss. It's always bliss. Why is it that we fight spirit so hard? And going into these spaces, just let it all go, let it go, let it go, let it go. So that's the biggest lesson from these experiences, is just to surrender. Breathe through it. Be present with it. Be present with your pain. How often do we allow ourselves? And as facilitators of these spaces, don't get into the trap of comforting people. As participants of these spaces, don't get into the trap of comforting, helping, rescuing, because allow people to be present with their pain. How often are we ever allowed to be present with our pain? Present with our pain, we're all drugged up on antidepressants, walking around carrying all this baggage because we're never allowed to be present with our pain. If you see someone weeping, let them cry. The most you should ever do is just shove a tissue in their direction. That's it. That is it. No touching.
Or a blanket.
Another reason is, the veil is very thin. Unless you've been on the shamanic path and you've done a dieta protects you because the plant forms part of your energetic field and then it digests that stuff. Unless you are on the path, you cannot touch someone, because when you do, you take on their stuff. If you've ever noticed that in an ayahuasca ceremony, you touch someone, next minute you're feeling really sick and you start purging their stuff because you've just taken it from them. Don't touch people. The same as in any of these ceremonies, the fire dance, don't touch, don't comfort. Keep your own space. And as facilitators, keep your own space unless spirit tells you, okay, go and touch. Otherwise, no touching. Let people be present with their own pain, because spirit is really the one that's facilitating the ceremony, not you. And it's very important, as healers, not that we're healers, we're facilitators, to really question our spiritual ego in terms of what is it in us that wants to be healers, because we're not the healers. What is it in us that wants to serve the medicine? Is it because we're wanting to put on a show and, come here, my medicine's good? It's what is it in us that wants to do this work? That spiritual ego, just let it go. The plants will call people, the ceremonies will call people. Never sell plants, never sell ceremonies. The medicine will call people to them. We're not here to sell the fire dance. We're not here to sell plants to you, because we know that if we do, it's going to be destructive. You will hear the calling in your heart and you will come. We're just ambassadors. But we have no agenda to sell you anything. It's not our job.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the surrender part, because that's really what it's about. When you're called, you surrender. And the pre-dance, we have dances often week before. Exactly what you said. I can't. And I just have to remind them. My job is to remind them why they were called in the first place. And most times they will still come. During the dance, oh dear, we have a leakage.
Leaking candle.
Thank God it's not my cloth.
I'm going to put it out again.
Yeah, I think so. During the dance, I think the crew don't have to surrender too much except to their work. But the dancers, it's hard for some people to surrender to whatever's boiling up inside of them, and a lot of times men struggle. A lot of time men struggle to just let go, and that's the hardest surrender for a man who's never cried or never broken down, to break down in front of a bunch of strangers, because the ego doesn't want to allow it. If I break down, I'm going to be seen as weak, I'm going to be a sissy or whatever, and it's not that. So our job as the fire father and myself and the fire mothers, our job is to find the word or the thing to put in their ear that will give them the permission to let go, to surrender. And afterwards, which you brought up as well, afterwards you have to surrender to all the callings that you get, because you will get these promptings from Spirit all the time. And I see it a lot with friends that they open the door and then they go, oh, okay, it's a little bit too much. You know? And then life starts to get really difficult and they go, why is my life like so hard? And I'm like, well, you stopped. You said yes and then you said no. You can't say no once you've said yes. You can't unring the bell. It's the same as awareness. You can't switch it off. You know, once you're aware, and then you see what's happening in the world, and it upsets you and it hurts your heart and makes you angry. You can't undo it. So what you've got to do is change yourself. That's the surrender. You got to surrender into the love that you have for yourself and how you can walk through the world that you can now see so clearly. You got to just keep saying yes. And when I was called, the one thing that happened to me is I guess I got deathly ill, and that's probably because I'd been resisting the call for so long, for like decades. But when I came out of that, I was, when doctors pump you full of medicine, they damage you pretty badly. And when I came out of that and I was recovered, but I wasn't recovered, I was at death's door from the poison they put in my body. And I went to see a friend because I could feel something wasn't right. I felt like I was a piece of silk on a breeze. I couldn't feel my soul. And I was standing in Discam and people were bumping into me, and that's how I knew I wasn't there, And I went to my friend and she came out and she said, I didn't feel you arrive, I always feel you arrive. And then she looked at me and she said, oh my God, get in here. And I went in and she said, you look like a creeping Jesus. I don't know what that means, but it sounded good at the time. She got me on her table and immediately she said to me, oh. She went, oh. And I'm like, okay, what? And she said, okay, you have a choice. You can stay or you can go. You don't have to stay on this planet anymore. But if you're going to stay, you've got to work. You can't play the human, touch the spirituality, put your toe into the spiritual dam, play the human. No. You got to be in it, full. Or else Spirit's going to take you off because you're not living what you said you'd do before you came. You're not living it. So it's your choice. And if you've had enough, you just say it and you will go right now on my table and I will hold space for you. That's pretty intense stuff. That's initiation. So to hop to the next thing, it's the whole point of fire. We use a lot of fire in ceremony. I think fire is important. Do you know any ceremonies where they don't have a fire, really? You need some kind of fire. Whether it's a bonfire or a pipe, incense, candle, wax, smudge, whatever it is, you need fire. And in the fire dance, the 5 fires have distinctly different energies. And you'll see how dancers gravitate. When I was recently in Iceland and I was the spirit firekeeper, it was my first time being a firekeeper at a fire dance. It was wonderful to do something else. It was just wonderful. But I was blessed that I couldn't really put wood on my fire because it was surrounded by dancers. They loved the spirit fire. But I've seen people like on the south fire, like our fires have different energies. So the east fire is where you enter the arbor, and the east is clarity and inspiration and illumination. It's thoughts, mental clarity. The south is nurturing, soothing, the heart. I see it as the heart fire. The west fire is the fire of call to action, so change, death, rebirth, anything where there's movement. The north fire is ancestors, guardians, guides, angels. It's everyone who stands behind us and with us. And the spirit fire is spirit. So, and each fire has its own plant that you offer. You don't realize how powerful fires are when they have a specific intention. And I love when you're dancing, you end up at one fire constantly. That fire is calling you, it's talking to you. And what is fire? It's transformation. Wood turns to ash. It's transforming. It's also this ethereal thing, because it's moving in front of you, It's transmuting everything. And like I said to you before, the fire dance chiefs have the ash from every single fire dance. So like when I have a dance now, I will keep ash aside. And when I see the chiefs, I'll give it to them. So I'll fly with a packet of ash in my suitcase and always just hope they don't think it's something else. You know? I'm just always hoping. It's grey, I promise you. You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fire is also really powerful and wonderful to work with in plant medicine ceremonies. And one of many years ago, I sat with San Pedro, and San Pedro taught me a lot about fire. And I was working with the fire, and the fire was speaking to me, and it was telling me about the different types of fire. Like you get like young fire that's immature and it's really hungry, and then you get like a mature fire, and the different personalities of fire and how it's a living being. And I really started to connect with fire back then, working with San Pedro. And with fire in ceremony, in the plant medicine ceremony, so fire is a great protection, and it takes things, and you feed the fire and you bless the fire and you keep feeding the fire with different offerings, and it forms like the center of your ceremony, and you honor the fire and you allow the fire to take things from the ceremony space, and you let go into the fire. And the fire is a being, and obviously the nature of fire is burning away, so you work with that energy of the fire and you allow it to burn away that which you need to let go of and what needs to be let go of into the ceremony space. So, and as a ceremony participant, in a plant medicine space, if you're really struggling, you can let go into the fire and just shed your pain, shed whatever it is that needs to be let go of into the fire, which is also very much the nature of the fire dance. So, there are other dances that also come to South Africa. There is coming the Star Dance is coming. It's actually going to, it's in Cape Town. Okay. It's coming to Cape Town. And there's the Sun Moon Dance, but I don't think the Sun Moon Dance is coming for a while. I don't know what is actually happening with the Sun Moon Dance, but there are other Native American dances that come out.
There are many.
Yeah, many. But the fire dance, the nature of the fire dance is the letting go and the burning away, and that transformative component of burning away. But most of these dances work with fire anyway.
They have the fire outside the arbor.
Yeah. So and you go to the fire and you use the fire to burn away. So that's really what is so special about fire is forming that relationship with fire. As a facilitator, also as a ceremony participant, to allow yourself to let go into that fire. And anyone who wants to work with fire, just sit with your fire. Let spirit guide you and teach you about fire. Let the fire teach you. Make offerings to your fire. Because fire is a living entity. There's different types of fires. Let spirit teach you about fire. Respect fire. It's really, really beautiful. Fire is very powerful.
We often have we have fire mothers and fire fathers in the arbor, and they're looking after. They directly work with the dancers. So when I'm chiefing, if I see a dancer down, I can direct a fire mother or fire father to them to go and just check on them. And sometimes they will take a dancer to the fire, and that person will scream at the fire. You'll see them like at that fire, like getting it all out. And fire keepers can also take the energy of their fire, and they'll often work with a feather fan or a shoba, and they'll take the energy over and to the dancer. They're not allowed to work directly on the dancer, but they can take their fire's energy to the dancer if they feel that that's the right thing to do. And it's in the fire dance, all fires come from the spirit fire. So we light the spirit fire when the dancers are being placed. We light the spirit fire, and then the dancers are placed in the arbor. And then where they're placed is very significant, according to the directions and which rocks they're on here, because there are other rocks inside the arbor. But later on, all the fires are lit from the spirit fire. So we do a spirit fire ceremony, and then one by one So all fires come from spirit in the fire dance. So, yeah, cool. And we're coming to a close.
Should we just do the
last part?
last
Most
part?
important.
Just one last thing is just to talk about like self-care. You know, if, for people that are holding space, self-work and self-care, and how important it is, and anyone who's been on this journey, dropping into, you know, after the ceremony, first of all, as a ceremony participant, self-care is crucial, whether you're working with plant medicines, with whatever ceremony, whatever medicine it is you're working with, self-care is crucial. And that self-care has to do with integration, it has to do with spending time with silence, it has to do with writing, moving through, because the ceremony, you know, the medicine that you've received, the ceremony doesn't end when the ceremony ends. The medicine continues to work with you. So with the fire dance, I've witnessed the medicine of the fire dance continuing for 6 months afterwards.
At least.
At least. With plant medicines, that medicine continues. Once you've ingested a plant, that medicine is in you. And it's also, what it does is it awakens you to the consciousness that the real ceremony is life itself. So you start to be able to identify the ebbs and flows of the ceremony of life itself. And it's to be able to ride those peaks and lows and hold space for yourself. So self-care and being able to find a practice, or to be able to find a way in which you can now take time out to look after yourself, to drop in and to move through, because the purging, and I'm not talking about necessarily vomiting, but the emotional purging, the clearing out, is something that we are doing constantly. So self-care is the integration process that needs to, we need to make space for it, whether we are working with the medicine of fire or the medicine of plants. And as a facilitator, the self-care is crucial, because as a facilitator, a backlog will kill you. It will kill you. Yeah,
it's everything she said, I agree. The hard part about facilitating big ceremonies is that, well, in dances, the chief, well, in the fire dance, I can't speak for other dances because I don't know how they work, but in the fire dance, the chief is responsible for those dances whenever they need the chief. And that can be years afterwards. They can call, and I mean, people who know me have seen me drop what I'm doing and take the call. It's a dancer. Pick up the phone and you take the call, and often call them back and talk for about an hour. Whatever's going on, stuff is unpacking and they need you. That is the most important role, which makes it hard sometimes for myself to rejuvenate. I mean, I'm still learning how to be energetically responsible. I'm still learning that. It's not an easy thing. You burn out very, very easily. So, and oftentimes, like the day after the dance, you just want to stop and you can't, because there's dancers calling or crew members calling, and you've just got to be there for them. But that's the whole point of it, you know. You can't say to the person, okay, the ceremony's over, you're on your own. You can't do that. You've opened the door, you said, I'm going to take care of you. You take care of that person until they don't need you anymore. And that's just how it is. And if you can't do it, you can't do this work. It's that simple. You know.
Yeah, and that's also really important when you're choosing a ceremony and you're choosing a facilitator, is to choose a facilitator that's going to give you that ongoing support, because that is the role of the facilitator, is to provide that support. So just in terms of closing, I wanted to say my little bit and then hand over to Sean. And then Sean. I do have to hand over to Sean at some point. Sean, by the way. Sorry, to Vaughan. Vaughan, Sean, you know.
I've been called Sean. I've been called Veronica. What do you mean?
It's that oneness, I lose all sense of name. To Vaughan. Veronica.
I've been called that.
Yeah. But I think that most of what I wanted to say, I've actually already said during this talk. But I think the main thing that just really has come out of this talk is just that really the work that we're doing is the same. It's different medicines, but the structure of the ceremony, the parallels are really insane. They really are so similar. So we're working with different medicines, but you know where it's taking us is to the same place. The fundamentals, holding space, the protection, the lineages, it's the same thing. And you know, just the connectedness of community, the weaving of community is becoming so strong between the different medicine communities, you know, and we are working with a number of different lineages within plant people, let's be honest. You know, we've got African medicines, we've got the red path, we've got the South American medicines, there's more and more medicines, dance medicine, there's more and more that's coming into this community, but yet we're all speaking the same language. And it's really, I do encourage you, you know, to expose yourself to these different medicines. We're working with yoga, Kundalini yoga, we're working with the Eastern path. We've had everything from Sufi teachers to Kabbalists to you name it, speaking at plant people here, and yet we're all speaking the same language, because in the language of spirit we are all one. And it's really, really beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. And yeah, it's been really lovely sharing this platform with you. Thank you. Vaughan, Sean, Veronica.
And Jesus.
You know, I think we have all these multiple modalities that we all work through, and some of them come through our lives, and then we'll just for a season, and then they'll move on. But at the end of the day, the intention is the same. You know, we all want to work for a better life, a better humanity, a better planet. We're all working for light. That's really, I mean, I know it's like, so it sounds so cheesy, but that's what it's about. It's light work, you know. And the thing that I see in South Africa is that there's a lot of infighting inside of the light worker community, and there doesn't need to be. There's enough for everybody, you know. What we're supposed to be doing is standing up and creating this web. You know, I remember when Serio passed in March last year, you could feel the whole. You know, this man held a big light. He held the biggest light of love I've ever seen. And when he passed, it was like suddenly we were all holding a little tighter, because there was a hole in the web. And that's what we're all part of. We're supposed to be interwoven and interlinked, and not competing with each other for the same stuff.
And we're not going to run out of people to heal.
Exactly. And outside of that, you know, we also need to remind ourselves, as people coming from the southern part of Africa, that we're not less than the people from Europe and America. For a light worker to be incarnated into this chaos, okay, you need to be some powerhouse, okay?
Yeah.
It's not, this place is not for sissies. Okay? And if you choose that path, and you're a South African, just know, you know everything. You knew it all before you came here. You know what you need to know. And we need to all be standing and holding each other, instead of having this, you know, I see all the little ego dramas, I see it. We don't need that. We don't need that. I won't tolerate that in a dance. I mean, I'm known for that. First thing I say, no drama. If there's drama, one of you will get kicked out. That's that simple. You know, you're here to serve. We're here to serve. We are here to serve. That's our job. We're here to help people to raise the frequency of this planet. You know, moving from this third dimension to the fifth, sixth, or whatever dimension we can get to. Let's just go. Let's go together. You know, and I know that there's some people that do stuff that I don't like, but they're doing their best. You know, so my judgmental ego goes, oh, but it's bullshit. They're doing their best. They're doing their work, you know. And that's what we need to accept, is that everyone's doing their very best, even though it might not look like it from our point of view, you know.
If I can share a very strong message that both Vaughan and myself have been getting, is that all healers are important. All healers are important. Because there's so much suffering that right now anyone who can give hope is really important. All healers are important. And we just need to support each other. And the work that healers are doing is important. It really is. So we've really just got to come together, you know, as a community, and that's really what we're trying to do, is just come together as a community, and come together as a community in love. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.